leaders? This is Chris Hampton, aka Champ. I'm a leadership coach, global peace ambassador, and community leader. And today we're going to talk about how to develop passionate leaders. Again, how to develop passionate leaders. So let's talk about and dive deep in what is the making of a leader. Well, you have to understand that the value of leadership. And when we talk about leadership, we need this quote from Dr. Miles Monroe. It says, nothing happens without leadership. Nothing changes without leadership. Nothing develops without leadership. Nothing improves without leadership. Nothing is corrected without leadership. Nothing advances without leadership. Nothing succeeds without leadership. We are all always directly or indirectly being led. And that's important because you see, everything rises and falls based off of leadership. So leadership is very important. So not only are you important as a leader, but it's also important that leaders reproduce leaders. So we're going to talk about that. How do we develop passionate leaders, people that are actually seeing your vision? They're tied to your vision and they put their hands to your vision the way and with the same care that you put your hand to your vision. You want the people that are following you to have the same care. And the only way they're going to do that is by the way of following your footsteps as a leader. John Maxwell says something called the law of the lid. And he says your organization is only going to be as effective as its leaders. So the law of the lid says that, the people will never grow beyond their leader. So if their leader stops growing, most likely their people are going to be under them. So you have to be committed to growing your leadership style, growing your leadership knowledge, growing your understanding of how leadership grows, right? One of the things I like to say is that a good leader has spice. I'll say it again. A good leader has spice. 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 I love acronyms because it keeps me on point, but it also makes it easy for you to remember. A leader is committed to their spiritual growth. And when I talk about your spiritual growth, I'm talking about the development of your inward man, your peace, that voice within, your conscious, your mind. If a leader is burdened with worry and anxiety, that transfers out to the people. So how are you taking care of your spiritual growth? Do you have that work-life alignment where you are able to take care of yourself and focus on your mental more than what's going on the outside? Because if you become mentally unstable, mentally imbalanced, it will affect how you lead other people. Okay. Personal growth, personal growth. You are always growing as a leader. So whether you're reading books on leadership, personal development, taking care of your physical health, right? You're going to be able to have physical boundaries of how far you let people come into your life. A leader is conscious of the personal development and growth. What good is it for you to have a position and do not have the body and the physical strength to match it, right? Leaders are intentional about their intellectual growth, their intellectual growth. So they're not just taking care of their spirit. They're not just taking care of their body and their outward temple. They're also taking care of the intellectual mind. Are you being challenged intellectually? What hobbies do you do? What things do you do to engage your mind and keep your mind sharp? Are you ahead of a lot of the tech changes? Are you stretching yourself mentally? You have to be intentional on that. C, leaders definitely need to be intentional on their character growth, because your character talks about what your core of who you are when no one's around is just as much important as who you are when everybody's looking, right? So you're always developing your character and your integrity. And then E is your emotional growth. This is very important that you are in tune to your emotions and your needs emotionally, and you are emotionally intelligent, that you recognize that you have emotions, and how you handle your emotions with people is very important, because people get close to you. So you have to be able to be in control of yourself emotionally, right? So there are certain connections and commitments that leaders need to do in order to grow themselves. Because in order for you to grow yourself, you must make sure that in order for you to grow others, you must be sure to make sure that you are growing yourself, right? So let's talk about some of I'm going to say 5 myths of leadership. Myth number 1, leaders are born and not made. Okay. That is half true. Leaders are born because we are all leaders. And when we understand that leadership is about influence, we all have some influence over someone in some way. But the truth of this is leaders are developed. Leaders are people who are taking the time to grow their leadership skills. There are some natural giftings that some may have, but mostly all leaderships are developed. All leaders are developed, not made. Okay. Myth number 2, leadership is a rare skill. It is rare because it's rarely taught. People do not lead because they are not taught how to lead. One of my first really introductions to leadership was junior ROTC when I was in high school, and I was actually learning the skills of leadership. I was a Boy Scout. I was taught different things of leadership, but I learned a lot in junior ROTC about leading myself and leading people. And I had mentors that mentored me in leadership throughout my life, from my spiritual life. My bishop, John Edmondson, and Pastor Aisha Edmondson taught me the core of how to lead people passionately. And so you're going to always have to find teachers that are going to teach you how to lead correctly, right? Leadership exists only at the top of the organization. And that is a really big myth, because people think that the position at the top is the only way to lead. Sometimes the most effective times of leadership in my life is when I had led from behind, where I was not the number 1, I was the number 2 and the number 3. And you could have more power and more influence guiding from the back than from the top, right? The higher you go, the more restricted sometimes you are. So it's not always the top of the position of leadership that's always the most effective way of leading. Number 4, all leaders are charismatic in personality. That means they're outgoing and the people. Charisma is important when you're leading people, but it's not the only mindset or the only characteristic. People who are not charismatic are usually inward, right? But doesn't mean that they don't lead in the outward places. Charismatic people will get charisma will get you through the door, but credibility and character will keep you there. It's the inner part that's more important than always the outward part. So don't judge someone because they have charisma and say they're a natural leader, because you can be charismatic and draw people in, but then when you find out you're struggling because you can't keep them, right? So those are the 5th one is a leadership. Leaders controlled by manipulation. Okay. Let me make this clear. It is always wrong to manipulate and to use people. You don't want to manipulate people. You want to motivate them, not manipulate. Okay. When you're manipulating, it's like the puppet on the strings. You do what I want you to do, and I have all these counter thoughts on how I'm going to make you do what I want you to do. But real leaders motivate by vision. They lead by vision and not by manipulation. If you are able to communicate your vision stronger and clearly, you'll find out that people will be drawn to your vision and want to be a part of it. So you don't have to manipulate anyone to do it. It takes too much effort and too much thought to go into manipulating people when you can just spend that same thought and energy in providing clear vision. Okay? Now, leadership is going to cost you. It's going to cost you to lead. Okay. What is it going to cost you to lead as a leader? It's going to cost you, number 1, personal change, because in order for you to lead others, you must, number 1, learn how to lead yourself. You want to lead with integrity, right? In order for you to lead with integrity, you cannot take someone somewhere where you have not been yourself. So you have to make sure that you are able to do what you're asking them to do as well. Number two, it's going to take you time. And when I say time, it's going to take you your reading, investment in reading, listening, and getting exposure. Most of the leadership opportunities I've gotten was because I have put myself in a place of exposure, always exposing myself to the next level, because I don't want my lit level to be the reason why the people that are under me are not growing. So I am committed to making sure that I am not getting comfortable and expanding, especially in times where you see technology changing and new things are coming about. And I always see a group or a generation that resists the change because they're resisting the growth. And because they're resisting the growth, they end up missing out on the new opportunities. Yes, it may be uncomfortable for you to take the time to learn something new, but real leaders are committed to continue to grow and not, you are either evolving or you're becoming extinct. The moment that you stop taking the personal change and the personal time to make it, you risk the potential of becoming extinct. So I'm committed to evolving as a leader. It's also going to take dollars. I realize this: anything worth learning is worth spending into. It's going to take an investment of your dollars, and your time is just as important as your dollars, but you have to make sure that you're putting dollars aside to grow in leadership, whether that's going back to school and getting an education in leadership, or serving under different people and turning your gifts, talents, and abilities to learn from other leaders. You're going to take time and dollars in an investment, so you can't be afraid to put money into that investment. It's going to cost you friendships too, because leadership, you're out in front of people. Sometimes what is popular is not the way to go, and you may have to find yourself leading yourself and leading others away from what popularity or what friends may say. And there may be some friends that can't go with you to the next level. So it's important to understand that the level of leadership requires sometimes sacrifice, because some people do not want to go where you're heading, and you can't force them to do that. And you don't want someone moving with you that's not called to be moving with you. I hope that you understand. That's very important. Number 5, when you become a leader, you lose your will or your ability. Your choices start to dwindle down. So you lose a bit of yourself in that, because when you become a leader, you can't always do what you want to do anymore. There's a sacrifice, because what you're doing now is for the best of the people that you want to lead. So let's help you here understanding that the levels of leadership, because when you are guiding people through this, you have to know that there are levels of leadership, and that there are levels and that the one that's the lowest level of leadership is actually the one that people think is number 1, and it's actually number 5. It's like the lowest level of leadership. So let's talk about the levels of leadership growth when it comes to leadership. Okay, number 1, position. Position is the lowest level of leadership. Why? Because people are following you because they have to. You ever have that manager on the job that just thought they were the lord over the fiefdom of that department, and then you felt like the morale was down? And the reason why the morale was down was because that person lorded the position over the people, right? But the position of leadership is actually the lowest level of leadership. It's the most commonplace. It is the starting point of leadership. Your position doesn't make you a position. It makes you a person with the position. So let's take a look at that. When people are the positive part of it. Positive part of position is people begin to define and shape themselves as a leader when they get the position. And you realize you have potential as a leader. So again, the lowest level of leadership is the position, but it's the starting point, right? Because you have to lead with position, right? The negative part is when people are forced to follow you, they give you the least amount of their energy. They're not tied to the vision. They end up being tied to the clock. I remember working the 9 to 5, and 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock would come, and about 4:30 I would shut my brain down, and then about 5 o'clock I was out the door punching the clock. You want me to start on time? I'm going to start on time. I'm going to end on time. That was my mindset. That was my time, a lot of energy for that resource of that job at that time. But then I realized as I began to find different leaders that would challenge me and grow me, that were invested in me, I would end up giving more time. It's amazing. One of the great examples that I use is I see church ministries that are built off of volunteerism, right? People will work a 9 to 5 and put their 9 to 5 in, and then come to a church and put an additional 5 hours of their time serving their local community, or serving their local mission, or serving their local community organization. Why is that? Because they saw themselves in the vision, and they are invested in that, where their position at their job was only a resource, and that was only for that time. Their energy was only for that time allotted. So if you want to get people to be able to serve you more, even in the workplace, they'll give you more if you can do number 2 and lead at the permission level. The permission level allows people to follow you, not because they have to, because they follow you because they want to. This is a higher level of leadership, right? And here's the thing. When you understand leadership is influence, you're learning how to use your influence in a positive way that will grow them and not antagonize them, right? People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. That was a quote by John Maxwell. So when you understand that you're at a position of leadership and you've gotten permission, you realize you have a relationship with the people. And the foundation of your leadership is now building relationship with the people that you are called to lead. And now you have permission to lead them, and they're going to will to open up their spout of how much they're going to give to you. Okay. Third category, the level. Let me give you because again, as this type of leader, you want to become the relational leader. Okay. Well, I don't want to get relation because I don't want to get too close, right? But you want to make sure that you're doing this in a way that relational leadership, they listen well. That means they are listening and taking their cues. They're very discerning of the people they're living. They're constantly observing the people that they are leading, and they're always learning. They never stop. Now, there's a difference between being a relational leader and somebody who just wants to be everybody's friend, right? So understand that, again, relational doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be the best friend of the people that you are leading. No, it means that you are concerned about the people that you are leaving, that you are keeping them in mind. But it's not about building friendships. It's about becoming relational, being attainable. Again, people don't care how much you know. They want to know how much you care. And that could be the level of what's bringing them in, right? Closer and being connected, because you want them to be connected to the leader, to the vision, not to the leader, but to the vision, because leaders change. But if you change leadership, the vision stays the same. Okay. So let's talk about the attitude of the great leader. An attitude of a great leader is an attitude of servanthood. That great leaders that inspire others, they are servanthood leaders. Their attitude is to serve first. They demonstrate the level of leadership by serving you first and becoming that pattern of servanthood. They reproduce servants. When you have an organization of sharks that produce sharks, then everybody's got blood in the water and everybody's trying to kill each other to get to the top. Right? That's not the type of leadership pattern. When we're all serving one another, to the level that primary leader serves, he's going to be the reflection of how other people are going to be serving beneath them, right? The next level of leadership is the production level. People now become effective as a leader because now they see their servanthood, they see the position, they see that they've given permission, so now they're giving more of themselves to the vision. Now they're beginning to produce. People now become as effective as the leader because they now produce. What are they producing? They're producing after the pattern of that leader. So as you produce leaders, they will produce more leaders. This is the problem-solving level of leadership because leaders now start to begin to gain what we call credibility at this level. They model things for their people that they want to see produced. If you're not seeing the results in your organization, you have to ask yourself, what am I producing? What am I producing? You see, there's the law of magnetism. I call it the law of magnetism, or we call it the law of attraction. And what that says is we attract who we attract who we are, not who we want. So when you're not producing the results, you have to ask yourself, what am I producing? Who am I as a leader, and what am I attracting? If you are always attracting drama and people that are always in your organization are producing drama, look in the mirror. What type of leaders are you producing based off of where you are now? And that's the reason why you have to be committed to growing yourself as a leader, because it's easy to change those things when you can recognize and identify those off areas and then say, am I bringing them? Am I reflecting that in the people that I'm leading? The fourth level of leadership is the people development level. And the people development level is now people begin to understand the most appreciable assets in its organization is its people. Because you have taken the time to make an investment in people, and you're investing your time in the people that are seeing your vision, what happens is you reproduce that in others, and they start to realize that people are the most valuable part of the organization, and they start to treat people the way that they are a valuable commodity, not a resource that needs to be spent. So now they're taking their time, and the people that you are leading are taking themselves to commit themselves to the organization. Why? Because they see the vision. They don't see you. When they see you, they should see the vision. When they're always looking at you and all they see is you, what happens is they don't see themselves, they see you. True vision is so big that it not only allows people to see what you're doing, but it allows them to see their part into fulfilling it. And it makes it welcoming for them to put their hands on the vision. And when they put their hands on the vision, they're going to put it with the same passion that that they're putting on their own vision. Why? Because they see a part of themselves in your vision. So you have to be committed to, one, sharing the vision. They will follow where they see themselves. They will commit themselves to making the vision come to life, because, again, they're invested in the vision because they're a part of that vision. The vision can't be you alone. The vision is bigger than you. And that's why people are coming to help you, because they see themselves being a part. And now they're putting more of their time, their thought process, their thought ingenuity into making the vision. Why? Because it's a personal commitment in their lives to see this vision come great. You grow in this stage by growing and developing the people in the organization and reproducing leaders. So let's talk about 3 steps of developing these people, because this is the most important piece right here. Number 1, recruitment. 80% of the success of equipping people to be successful is in the front door of who you bring in. Understand the 80-20 rule and how it can affect you negatively. 20% of the work produces 80% of the results. When it comes to building an organization, you do not want it to be 20% of the people doing 80% of the work. This leads to frustration and burnout. Have you ever been burnt out when it felt like it was just the same people doing the same thing, right? For a majority of the work, it was a few people holding up the big building, and it really shouldn't be this way. So we need to start recruiting key people that identify the vision, so that you can spread that labor out, so that you have more people holding up the vision rather than a few people. But you just don't want any type of people to be a part of this. You want fat people. I call it FAT, F-A-T, not fat people, but I'm going to take the acronym of FAT. And these are the people that you want to recruit to be able to make sure that they are reflecting the vision. Are they faithful? When I say faithful, are they faithful to the vision, faithful with responsibilities, faithful to their word? Do they do what they say they're going to do? Do they show up when they say they're going to show up, right? That's very important. You don't release positions to people that are not faithful. And you need all 3 of these, okay? A is available. Do they show up on time? And when they show up, do they really show up and put the work in? Are they available? And the last letter is T, teachable. Are they willing to be taught? There's nothing worse than having a leader that thinks that you cannot pour into them more than what's already on. I need leaders that are faithful, available, and teachable. All three of those levels are important to have when you are recruiting that person, because you can have someone that's faithful, but they're not available and teachable. You can have somebody who's available with their time for the time that they're there, but they're not faithful and they're not teachable. They don't bring the results, right? So you need all three of them. Okay, one is not just enough. Number two is positioning. When you're talking about developing people, the ability to bring the right person in the front door, but also put them in the right places. You might have someone who has the gift of hospitality. You don't want them to be in the back room somewhere where they need to be up in the front room greeting people, right? And creating that customer experience. You may have that leader who might not be a people person, but they like to be alone. We'll put them in that places where they can be alone, or they can be in a place where they're not desired to have that people gene, have a people leader, right? But you may have areas that person may be stronger. Maybe that person is great at developing things and growing things. So position them based off of what they're good at, right? Position leaders, successful leaders, discover what other people are good at. So you have to be able to look at them not just for what they can give you now, but how they can be developed. Successful people have found their niche and they stay and work in that sweet spot. So you want to make sure that we can create opportunities for them to find their sweet spot. Successful people position themselves well, and successful leaders position other people well. So that's very important. So successful people have discovered what they're good at. Successful leaders discover what other people are good at. Successful people have found their niche and they stay and they work in their sweet spot. Successful leaders position themselves well, whereas successful leaders, position other people well. So again, it's not just knowing your niche, but how to position that niche a little bit better. Okay. Number three is training, and this is very important. When you are training up leaders, you have to make sure that that's why your law of the lid is important, because as you are learning, you need to take what you're learning and pouring it into the people. So here's what you do. If you ever have a position or a position that you're filling, you have to make sure that you have these 5 things in place. Number one, I do it. So you show it to them first of how they do, what you want to reproduce and what you want them to know. You do it before them. And then you go to stage 2. I do it and you're with me. So now I'm doing it and they're watching, right? And they're participating, they're observing, right? They're observing. You do it and I'm with you. So now I'm passing it to them to try to do and to reproduce what I put before them. You do it and you do it by yourself. Now I'm watching you. I'm watching you, and I'm watching you go through the process, because now I've showed you how to do what you need to accomplish. I've assisted you, and now you're strong enough to do it. Now what you're going to do is I'm going to allow you to do it and somebody with you. I'm going to recreate the process. Now they're going to take someone through the same way that I took them through it. And now it's a well-ordered, and the further it gets away from me, it should not change from me. Why? Because we've showed that same pattern. We're watching that same pattern. That pattern is repeatable. Okay. And then the last level that we get to of leadership is number 5, is the pinnacle level of respect. People are following you because of who you are and what you've done in your life. You've earned the respect because you are consistent and you have a good track record. You don't get to this respect level, the pinnacle level, overnight. You get to this level of reproducing leaders over time, and you have successfully reproduced other leaders. And these leaders that you are reproducing are just as passionate as you are. Why? Because they're reflecting you and your heart and your vision. Are you the leader that is developing passionate leaders because you lead passionately? I hope you learned something from this. My name is Chris Hampton, aka Champ I Am. Join us at the Champ I Am community. It's a free community where leaders and speakers and community levels and thought leaders are meeting. It's multiple communities in one space, just come to champimcommunity.com. We would love to have you in. It's a free app, and it's a free time where you get more leadership content on how to grow you and your life and to release the champ I am, that leader that's on the inside of you. Thank you. I hope you learned something today, and you too can develop passionate leaders. Thank you.